Oh, hey, everybody. Good evening. Thank you so much for watching, listening, whenever, wherever you may be doing so. This is The Yard Sign, the most important relevant podcast in politics. Your host, as always, Johnny Torres. This is a post-Stanley Cup episode, so we are in recovery. We are in mourning as our Tampa Bay Lightning were not able to make the three-peat. Doesn't mean that we don't have a dynasty at hand. They're still at 8-1 odds to be back in the Stanley Cup next year. But, man, that was a tough game to watch, but an amazing season for the Tampa Bay Lightning. So thanks to those guys for putting on a show and you know, making us proud regardless, you know, really kind of going out there and putting up a fight to the end. That being said, back to the usual, as there is a lot. I mean, I think a lot of people were seeking out sports as a break from all the incredible amount of news that has been coming out lately. And so we're going to try to touch on some of those things. As always, we're going to go not only nationwide, but we'll go statewide and then also touch on some local races as well throughout today's conversation. And given the gravity of what's been unleashed, we also have not only our one of our usual faces joining us so we can jump right into tonight's topics, but we also have a expert, believe it or not, joining us on tonight's show. You know, we're trying to take this thing seriously here, at least for tonight anyways. So
my mic is on?
No, it's never on at the beginning because like for the
Very offensive.
You're offensive. SCOTUSpalooza, as we were saying, man, SCOTUS just dropping bombs like it's Russia and Ukraine around here. They are just causing all kinds of insanity. They're liberals losing their minds, their ever-loving minds. I mean, they honestly, the only reason they may not turn out to vote at this point is because their heads have literally exploded by November. Gillum meets the feds. Andrew Gillum, former gubernatorial candidate here in Florida, might end up federal inmate, Andrew Gillum, and we'll talk about why, and then we'll give you a recap on polls and primaries, not only national but also here throughout the state of Florida and Tampa Bay, give you an idea of what's going on, because again, a lot of pieces still moving, especially since we just had some deadlines in terms of qualifications and paperwork having to be in, and Nebel's got an itch to scratch on that one. So let's go over to the big table and welcome our usual faces. Over on the far right is the far right, Enable David Cabrera. I know he loves that intro.
Oh, hello. Okay, it's working now. Okay, it's good to know.
Yeah, it works. Oh, it works when I want it to work.
Yeah, I know. That's the problem.
It's not the problem. It's a feature, not a bug.
There are a lot of problems.
It's a feature, not a bug.
It's a bug.
And then they're tolerating us in the center seat as usual.
I'm here.
Trying to muster the energy, quite literally, with his energy drink for tonight's show is Joe Wicker.
This looks like a Bang energy drink, but it's actually a new form. It's Liberal Tears. Got 0 calories. Right here. It says right here. 0 calories.
Yeah. 100% Liberal Tears.
Lots of vitamin C. It helps with your immunity.
There we go.
Right?
Okay.
Yeah. Liberal
It
Tears.
helps fight COVID.
It fights COVID. There you go. That's
certainly better than the Pfizer vaccine.
And we are officially banned.
Liberal Tears are probably have a better efficacy rate than the COVID vaccine probably does.
Actually, you're probably right on that.
It probably does.
We'll have to study that one.
Lots of Liberal Tears this week, that's for sure. It's been crazy.
What's cool is that's a Florida company. A lot of people don't realize Bang Energy is a Florida company.
Is it?
We are not giving someone free publicity.
No, yeah, you're right.
Remember during the Trump administration when he said there's going to be so much winning, your head is going to spin?
Yes.
And there for a while, there was a lot of things happening and heads were spinning, and I feel like that's been what it's like this week with the Supreme Court. It's just so much winning.
You hear so many people talking crap about it, like,
so much
there's
winning.
so many issues, and I'm just smiling in the background.
I'm trying to come up with...
I'm pretty happy with what's happened.
I'm trying to come up with, some sort of a metaphor that perfectly explains just how beautiful this is, because Trump has been out of office for almost 2 years now. And the fact that this is now blowing up in liberals' faces at a time where they're already, down in the dumps because they're going to get destroyed in the midterms. Now, all of a sudden, Trump kind of resurfaces in this kind of indirect way through the Supreme Court. And he's just making their lives miserable.
This is actually like part of the reason why So there's some nuance, the nuance of politics playing out here. You know, a lot of times politicians try to make everything about right now, like this election is going to be the most consequential, you know, and they always say that, of course, especially if it's their election. But I'm trying not to give a shout out to somebody I don't necessarily want to give a shout out to, but like there are some establishment, what we would call establishment Republicans that know how to play the long game.
Right.
They happen to be senators. They know how to play the long game. I mean, I'm going to call out one, Mitch McConnell. I mean, the dude, I don't know how old he is at this point. He's been there a long time. Long time.
Long time.
You never hear him talk about much. He's not really throwing bombs. He's kind of feels like a moderate. You know, a lot of people might call him a rhino. It's kind of, you know, but that guy's been playing the long game.
What I love is how disarming he is.
Yeah.
Like you hear him speak, you hear him, you know, just go, you know, and you're like, wow, he doesn't seem very kind of threatening.
And in reality, in the background, extremely powerful.
Yeah.
And you know, he didn't get in Trump's way, like. And I'm getting to a point here about the Supreme Court, but Mitch McConnell he was politically wise enough to see what was happening in the country, and he didn't stand in the way of Trump. He saw what was coming. I mean, he was probably with some other people. He was probably with Jeb or Rubio or whatever, but he saw what was coming. Everything happened the way it happened, and then he worked with Trump to get done some things he needed to get done. He held off on Obama's Supreme Court justices, which now you see all of these checks getting cashed.
Right.
There were things that McConnell was doing on the back end
during the Obama administration.
And some with the Trump administration, even though he didn't have to come out and be like so for or against Trump. Just did his thing, played the long game. And now he's just sitting back like, told y'all what was going to happen. Trump's gone. Trump's gone. That whole administration's gone. Who's still there? Mitch McConnell. And now all these justices are there. And now these decisions are coming down, which some of these decisions have actually, the cases have been working their way through the court system. For years. Right. See, so all this stuff doesn't, some of this stuff is just the stars aligning, but some of this stuff has been in the works, actually, you could argue maybe for decades, because you got to find the right cases.
Well, and what I love was the fact that I saw a compilation of various high-level Democrats, including Obama, who were saying that they were going to codify Roe versus Wade, and that was kind of like the key phrase.
Yeah,
right. They were going to codify it into law. It was going to become the law of the land. They were going to, and of course, they never do it. They never do it. They never follow through with it. And
a Democrat not following through on what he promised. What is this?
And that's why, like, I found a video. Actually, I found a brilliant video. It was the Fox News debate between Trump and Hillary Clinton. And you'd had Chris, the one who left the CNN.
Yeah, Wallace. Yeah.
Asking Trump, you know, if he would be in favor of overturning Roe versus Wade.
Right.
And he kind of skated around the question for a little bit. And then he said, look, he goes, the goal is to replace 2 or 3 justices. He goes, if we do that, it's almost a certainty that Roe versus Wade gets overturned. Like, he just laid it out just like that. And this was 6 years ago.
And I can guarantee you that when...
No, that would have been like, that would have been like 7 years ago.
And I can guarantee you that when Trump was gonna win, right? Yeah. He had already... Trump, I mean, look, he might talk crazy sometimes, but he's not crazy. He met with the right people from before he ever decided to run all the way through before he became president.
Yeah, there was a list. There was a list already formed.
When he was the guy that was going to be, when he was the nominee, I can guarantee you he was having conversations ahead of time.
Oh, yeah, there's a good documentary on Netflix
with McConnell. That. Yeah, and those guys and saying, listen, what can we accomplish?
He was talking to people all over the political spectrum. Yeah.
What can we accomplish and how do we get it done? And who knows better how to get some of that stuff done? And that's why I know people are kind of down on Pence right now. But, you know, the thing is that having guys like that around you enabled Trump to get some of these things done because those guys know the process, and Trump didn't know the process, the political process. And last thing I want to say about that is I know you were kind of mentioning before the show started about kind of the show exposing some of the inner workings of politics, right? And what a lot of people don't realize on both sides of the aisle, if you're a very strong liberal or you're a very strong conservative, we get wrapped up in some of these political issues like the pro-life movement and guns, for or against, right? Taxes, not taxes, healthcare for free, everybody, not for, whatever your issue is, pick your hot button issue and ask yourself, why hasn't it been solved yet? Like, there's been plenty of opportunities where there's been Democratic-controlled White House, House of Representatives, and Senate. Right. So why didn't something get done? And then the reverse.
Like the embassy moving to Israel.
Yeah. Exactly. Why didn't that happen?
It could have been done multiple times.
Exactly. So the same thing with Republicans. There were times during George W. Bush when the Republicans had control of all branches of government. Why didn't those things happen? Here's why those things don't happen for those people that are watching or get on later. Because sometimes the issue, running on the issue, can be more valuable than solving the issue.
Right.
And that's not to say that a lot of individual elected officials don't want to solve big issues, because I think a lot of people do. But the fact is, a lot of times you don't have the votes. You don't have the votes to actually solve it, but you can sure raise money off of that bad boy, and that's what they do.
Which is what happened.
And you're bombarded with texts.
Well, not only that,
that is exactly what happened on Friday when the Supreme Court justices released their opinion in regards to when they did the reversal. And you had women. They did a review of the. They were
raising
talking
money
about
off of it.
No, they were talking to women at the Pride March in San Diego or somewhere in California.
Right.
And they were talking about, what is your opinion about what's going on? They're like, I don't like it. But I also don't like the idea that I got an email from one of the Democratic senator trying to get me to give them $15 more. Well, you've been asking us to give you money every single time, and this still got reversed.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's a red pill moment of like, they're asking me to give me money.
Recognizing.
And it's like, it's not even 24 hours.
Yeah.
And it's
recognizing
like,
what's happening.
And I'm like, these people are sick.
And you can bet millions upon millions of dollars have been raised in the last 24 hours on all sides.
Both sides.
I mean, I get. There's probably 5 different texts or emails I get from Trump's.
Oh, look, I'll tell
it's
you.
not even Trump. It's not even him.
I'll tell you what you both said is actually 100% correct, because I've worked for one of those agencies.
Yeah.
Those digital agencies that work for senators, governors, you name it. And the minute a big item breaks the news, then it's like, how do we raise money off of this? Yeah. And then the first thing is send out an email.
But you know what, though? But now on the flip side of that, I can understand, as a former candidate myself, I mean, look, people are going to respond to these big issues. Yeah. And there has to be, when you're asking somebody for money, there needs to be a call to action.
Correct. Right.
There's a call to action. I need you to support this campaign, and for this reason, can you do that?
I'll give you a perfect example, of someone that we both know, whose campaign I did digital work on. There was a story that broke that a young lady was not able to wear a cross necklace to school. She was wearing it, and then one of her teachers said, "You need to take that off." And
when?
She goes, "This was." I don't know, 6
in Hillsborough County?
No, it happened here in Florida, but it became a national story.
Oh, okay.
So the young girl was told to remove the cross, and she didn't remove the cross, so she got sent to the principal's office. And then they basically, I think, sent her home. And of course, parents got up in arms and all that. So it became a First Amendment issue.
Wow.
And so right away, we capitalized on that, and we sent out it was a petition.
Yeah, right.
For those of you out there who love these Facebook petitions, let me tell you exactly what these petitions do.
Give me all your information.
Say, oh, man.
I mean, sign this petition,
This young girl, I feel so bad for her that she had to take off her cross. Here's my name, here's my address, here's my phone number. I am totally in support of this young lady. And all that does is goes right into that campaign's database for fundraising.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't actually accomplish anything. And so when you fill out these,
you mean the petition doesn't go anywhere?
No, the petition doesn't go anywhere.
It doesn't really
just like the ones on the what is it, the .gov, the
White House
Obama,
ones.
The White House.
Oh, yeah.
Those petitions,
right.
They don't go anywhere.
Yeah. So think about that, guys. You go to an official White House website. And what was it? If they got 150,000,
that was Obama's thing.
What was it?
They had to respond to it.
Yeah,
that the Obama administration was going to respond.
If they got a certain number of petitions on that issue, the Obama administration would directly respond to it. Meanwhile, what they're really doing is data mining. So now it's like, thank you for coming and signing up
and telling us the issues
and
that
telling us the issues that you care about, which they may not have been able to get through your traditional data mining.
No, the Obama administration did a great job data mining and getting those people. The problem is that organization did not translate into anything moving forward.
This is the business side of politics that people don't realize exists.
But going back to the decisions that were made, I think I wanted to see, because people are really upset, because now people are talking, well, Trump put in 3 Supreme Court nominees and justices during his tenure of his one term. Right. And I was like, well, how often does this actually happen, that one president could put a large amount of Supreme Court justices onto the court? And the last time it was a big swing like this was Reagan. Reagan put 4 justices onto the Supreme Court. In 8 years. Nixon put 4 on the 8 years that he was in there.
Almost 8 years.
Yeah, almost 8 years. Eisenhower put in 5. I thought that was a crazy number. Roosevelt put in 7.
Well, Roosevelt was president for 15 years.
I know.
20
so it
years.
was insane.
What was he president for? 8, and then 2 more, right?
What is very showing, what is very, it's what's very telling in all this is that now liberals are trying to use January 6th and pretty much anything that they didn't like that Trump did as a way to somehow discredit that those 3 justices don't belong on the Supreme Court. Right. And now, much like they do with the elections when they don't win, they want to throw it out,
they want to expand the court. They want to expand the court.
They go from 9 to 13.
Well, no, not even that. Now they're saying, no, there's literally an opinion article out there, I think in the Washington Post or somewhere like that, saying that basically that the...
Just ignore it?
No, that the Supreme Court should just go away. That we should get...
Well, the country we'll see. They're already
just like the Electoral College.
Well, they kind of do this a little bit. I hate seeing this because I think this is very dangerous and you need to be careful about saying certain things just because it fits your cause. But there's articles being pushed out there saying the Pentagon has already said they will not be following the Supreme Court's decision. And it's like, whoa. Time out.
You can't
time out. Like First of all, here's the problem with that. Because the truth is, the Pentagon, what they really mean, the Department of Defense, okay, and they're talking about the military. Well, military bases are federal property. Mm-hmm. They're not under the purview of the state government. Now, we got a lawyer that's going to be on the line here, so maybe there's some nuance there. Yeah. Okay, because, if you get arrested in town, it's not like they just hand you to the feds. But the military installation itself, and I never even thought about this. I don't even know if they provide abortions on military installations. I've never thought about it. But anyway.
Probably not.
Anyway, the point is that the way they're pushing these articles, the way they're pushing that statement is to try to say, well, here's an element that's going to ignore the Supreme Court.
Right.
And, we need to be careful about that type of stuff. You don't need to be saying, oh, yeah, judge said, okay, well, screw that. We're not doing that. Yeah. Whoa, time out. Because if that spreads and, you start having complete lawlessness.
When the military starts ignoring other branches of government, that's when things get ugly real quick.
Exactly. So I understand that it's not really the way they're pushing that narrative, but that's a narrative I don't even like seeing. I don't even like seeing somebody saying so-and-so is going to ignore the law. It's like, whoa.
So if Trump gets reelected, then what? Who's to stop them from saying, "Well, we're not going to pay any attention to what the president says"?
We already have issues with the executive branch not doing its job, which is to enforce law.
Right.
That's already a problem.
Yeah. Again, the articles that I was reading today was talking about how well if you don't like the Second Amendment, then we should just get a constitutional convention. I'm like, yes,
go for it.
Let's have this conversation.
Yeah. You just need 3/4 of the states.
Conservatives didn't try that for the last 10 years.
Yeah, all you need are 3/4 of the states. Go ahead.
And shout out to my buddy Ken Mayo and all his friends and all those guys that tried to do that because again,
is the Convention of States issue is that organization dead because they got up to 30?
I don't don't know. I mean, I'm just saying it's a steep hill. I mean, it's easier to climb Everest.
They got to get to 35. They have to get to 35 states, I think, right?
Even willing to have the conversation to even be able to go into that moment of, okay, let's figure out what's going to happen. But the moment you open that Pandora's box, the entire country is going to go unraveled because everything is going to be on the chopping block. You can't just say you're going to open the door for
we
just
don't want
a
to get into that. We don't want to get into that. No, they were going to show up with everything was pre-prepared. It wasn't going to be a free for all. But we're not going to.
No one was ever going to do a free for all.
We're not going. We don't need to get into that. We don't need to get.
All right. So part of our SCOTUSpalooza is we're actually going to bring in an expert via the phone. I don't think we've ever had anybody over the phone on the show yet. But joining us now is our good friend, attorney Adam Banter. And Adam, someone who has to work and leverage the Constitution to help his clients every single day. You can find him at TampaCrimeAttorneys.com. And Adam joins us now over the phone. What's up, buddy?
Not much, Johnny. Good to hear from you. I think you're being a little bit generous with the term expert, but I'll take it. So,
well, you're certainly more than expert than any of us because you've passed the bar exam and you've gone to law school. So we'll make those the qualifications at least for this program.
There you go. I'm board certified as well in AD preeminent, so I got a little extras there too.
There we go. Yeah. All right, I like it.
Preeminent. I don't know what that means, but that sounds.
It sounds legit.
Sounds nice, doesn't it?
Yeah.
I assume you know what we're talking about.
Kind of like when you get that master's of what? So you my master now?
Well, I'm just glad that we often talk about these legal issues, and I know how lawyers feel. I have to pay lawyers to get their opinions. Half the time, they don't know what their opinion is, but on Facebook, everybody becomes these constitutional attorneys or medical doctors, and everybody jokes about it, but it's true. Everybody's got an opinion, and these issues get complicated, and they get into the law. And I was sitting here because I've read these decisions, but it's like I can't necessarily speak to it in the best way. So I'm excited that we have an actual. Yeah, you got to understand the history of the case law and how did they get to that, because they obviously cite previous case law, and there's all these issues. It's very deep, and no one understands what the court's actually done. So hopefully, Adam can help straighten us out a little bit.
Yeah, Adam, so let's go ahead and get you warmed up first. Let's go ahead and start with the news that broke today, which was the decision of the high school coach who took his case to the Supreme Court. This was a high school coach who liked to pray at the 50-yard line following every football game. The school district told him that he needed to stop doing that because there were a large number of students that were joining him voluntarily. I don't know why I almost lost my voice there. Voluntarily joining him at the 50-yard line, for a moment of prayer after every game. And, again, something that it wasn't like necessarily organized. It wasn't enforced. It wasn't even encouraged. It's just something that kind of happened organically over time. And the school district came down and said he couldn't do that anymore. And now the Supreme Court has actually said, yeah.
And he got fired.
That's right. He did.
He eventually got fired. I just want to interject one little thing. He had been doing it. He had been having kind of like motivational speeches that were religiously motivated. I don't know that. I mean, whatever. But
yeah,
he was giving these speeches in the locker room, like you do for young men, getting them fired up because we're about to get out there on the the field.
That's right.
We're warriors here,
Touchdown Jesus.
And, and I guess he was throwing in some warriors for Christ. I know, put on the full armor of God. I mean, I don't know what I don't, and I'm a Christian. I'm joking here about it, but I mean, look, I believe it, but it's football. And so they're going out there. And I mean, look, nobody wants to get hurt. So I'm all about praying for safety, because nobody wants to break a leg. But they were doing it in the locker room. And it was clearly like, it was on school time. Like, I mean, he's like, it's on the watch type of thing.
Yep.
And so they stopped him to doing that. And he did stop doing that. And he stopped doing the kind of the religiously based motivational speeches in the locker room. He ceased that at their request. And then he's like, all right. And then I think he was doing some stuff outside during the game or prior to the game, and he stopped doing that. So then he's like, okay, I'll pray on the 50-yard line after after the game's over, if anybody's
still around,
if anybody's around and wants to join me, you know, and then an opposing team's coach complained about that, you know, there's always got to be that, you know, there's always that, you know, militant atheist. There's always that militant atheist that just doesn't want to even see it or hear about it. So somebody complained, and then the school went after him for that.
I'm sure it's someone who preaches about tolerance too.
Yeah, it's probably somebody that's all about tolerance. And that's when the coach was like, guys, I'm a no on this. I'm not doing it. And he took a couple days, I guess, to think about it. Then they put him on leave, and eventually I think he was terminated over it. That's how he got to the court.
Yeah. So, Adam, what really? I mean, it seems like a fairly simple ruling here, but what does this really allow for? How does this kind of change things when it comes to, you know, because you see it all the time. You see professional athletes do it. You see, you know, athletes at every level. You know, whether it's in an interview, whether it's, you know, in a huddle with some of their team members. You know, doing a quick prayer. What's the overall outcome here?
Well, the bottom line with this is it allows individual employees to not have to check their religion at the schoolhouse door. They can bring their faith with them, just as you would, like you said, like, you know, an NBA player could do. If they want to come out there and pray, they can do it. It's a private company. But just because you're a public employee doesn't mean you have to check your religion at the door. So what they said is, no, yeah, you can come out there. It doesn't matter if it's after a football game, if it's on school property, you have the right to exercise your religion. And I think what's important here is one of the arguments is, well, what if some of the players feel forced that they have to do this? That it's just that peer pressure to be a part of the group and they have to participate, and it's on school grounds, it's school function. Right. And essentially the court was like, well, yeah, that's life. Get over it. You know, be strong enough to stand up to it or join them. You know, it's the choice is yours, but we're not going to prevent this guy from exercising his beliefs because some other people might get offended or might feel pressured.
Yeah, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that's kind of the angle they were trying to attack this at, which was that he was doing it on school property. Am I right?
Yeah, it was on school property, and because he was an authority figure over student athletes, they felt that kind of unspoken pressure was imposing his religion upon them, and as a school employee, he shouldn't be doing it because of the separation between church and state, etc. But the court said, nope, it's after the ball game. He's doing this voluntarily. Nothing's forcing the kids. Nothing's coercing them. He doesn't have to check his religion. Which,
again, this goes back to a conversation that Joe and I have had numerous times, which is the misinterpretation of the separation between church and state. Mm-hmm. And so, well, you know, next, I would hope he's probably going to sue for his job back or sue for lost wages.
I don't know. I was going to say, I don't know if he'd want his job back, but at least lost wages. And hopefully he's probably already last doing a good job coaching at some Christian high school somewhere, and it's not even an issue.
Right.
What's annoying to me about the whole separation of church and state issue is that, number one, most people, Adam can back me up. I'm not trying to back you in a corner, Adam, but it's not in the Constitution. Okay, that's number one. It doesn't exist in the Constitution, right?
Which is really the foundation of this whole conversation.
Yeah, it's not in the Constitution. Mm-hmm. But most people actually believe that the phrase separation of church and state is somehow in the Constitution, when in reality, the courts in a previous decision pulled out what Thomas Jefferson was saying.
Right.
Correct me if I'm wrong, Adam. When he was trying to appease through a letter to the Danbury Baptist Church, okay, because the religious folks before this foundation of the country, as this whole thing is getting formed up with the Constitution, you had people who fled religious oppression.
Right.
They came from
the whole reason they came here.
They came from a circumstance where if the king was Catholic, you had to be Catholic or we kill you. Or the king's Protestant now, and now we're all Protestant. And if you're not, you know, and they fled from that. And they're like, listen, we don't want the government getting involved in this. We don't want there to ever be a national church. Mm-hmm. And Thomas Jefferson was trying to appease people and convince them that that's not going to happen.
Right.
The federal government has no role in that. There will not be a state church, and there's going to be a wall of separation. And he's explaining this, and then later the courts take that term. It becomes case law somehow, and now everybody talks about it. Oh, we have separation church and state. We have separation church and state. Wait a minute. Hold on a second. People have confused the government not establishing a state church with the government having to be having to be almost have an animus against people's religious beliefs and expressions anywhere in the public square. And so it's transitioned from just not having a state sanctioned religion to now people believing that you can have no expression of faith whatsoever anywhere in the public, and that's just not true.
It's not true.
No, you're absolutely correct.
What am I missing here, Adam?
No, you're not missing anything. Somewhere along the line, the law guy, there's a perversion in the law on that where they started drawing a line between any religion at all in any sort of government action or office, et cetera, et cetera. Meaning the idea of a state sponsorship of a religion. Yeah, you can't have the government telling you what your religion should be, but at the same time, in any official government capacity, there doesn't have to be an exclusion of religion as well. We all still have a choice in how we want to practice and how we want to exhibit our faith, regardless of whether it's in the public square, a public arena, or a private, as long as it's government not telling you how to practice.
Mm-hmm. And I think, Adam, hasn't there been some court cases where the courts have basically said that certain things like in God we trust on money or in God we trust on a government building and things like that, and I forget what's above the Supreme Court or whatever, but it is and the things like that. I mean, hasn't there been some court decisions where they've basically said, listen, at this point, in God we trust on our money is kind of like, it's just like, it's not even really religious anymore. Like there was something
that at this point.
Yeah.
I think that's how they tiptoed around that in between, tiptoed around the idea of ripping the word God off our dollar bills is they said, oh, well, at this point, it's not religion. It's just more tradition and part of the culture of America or whatever they phrased it. I don't know. I'm not a First Amendment expert by any stretch of the imagination.
Well, you are tonight. You are tonight.
Take the compliment now.
Yeah. But yeah, no, I think there is some case law out there where they danced around it a little bit and said, no, we're not going to force the government to rip that phrase off our money.
I wonder what this is going to do for this coach, right? So I love football and I love God. So I'm cool with combining those two, but I understand why people wouldn't want that. And if I was on a football team and one of my teammates was like, bro, I'm just not with this, I wouldn't want that. I would want them to be excited about the game and not feel pressured in any way. I don't want that. I mean, but where does this What are we going to see? Is anything going to change basically with public? Because I think this is really public schools. This is where we have the issue. Public schools, yeah. But I know we've had cross cemeteries with crosses on it or cross monuments to like soldiers that have been getting torn down or threatened to be torn down by government. Where is this going to leave us? And is this decision going to does this like overturn anything else that's been going on, or where are we going from here with this?
I mean, maybe. I mean, to give you the lawyer answer.
It depends. It depends. That'll be $656.
You sound like you're speaking from experience.
That'll be $900 an hour. Our partner weighed in on it, so that's a $900 an hour.
Yeah, but in reality, I don't think this decision does that. I think this decision just strengthens the individual right to practice. Whether a public school wanted to erect a cross on their property, I don't know if the court would allow that to stand, because then it looks like it's the institution itself is maybe promoting that idea. So I don't know if the court is willing to stretch its ruling that far. It could, certainly. I don't know if it would. But at the very least, if you read this case as narrowly as possible, it's basically saying individuals don't have to check their rights. Now, whether it goes farther than that down the line, who knows?
Yeah, so what defines check your rights? Like, I think that's what I'm wondering. Like, how do we – because Johnny mentioned, like, a little girl wearing a cross to school. I mean, my gosh, right? But now but the courts, I think, haven't they supported the school systems when it comes to things that kids are wearing? Like, kids don't have a right to just wear whatever they want, because I think it was the decisions were
dress codes.
I think the decisions around that came along the lines of creating a disruption in the classroom. And I always thought that things like religious symbols were going to at some point be deemed like, oh, it's political, it's creating a disruption. I mean, where does it end? And And so Johnny used an example of a little girl wearing a cross. I think most people are like, dude, come on. It's a little girl wearing a cross. Big deal. Who cares, right? You've got this case, you've got a coach praying after a game. Like, if you don't want to pray, like, leave. The game's over. Like, nobody's compelling anybody to be there. Like, the lights are getting ready to get turned off. Where do we go from there?
What that boils down to or comes back to is just strong parenting, quite frankly. I mean, it's weak parents wanting the government to do something that they're afraid to do. They're afraid to teach their kids to stand up and make decisions on their own. So their fallback is, well, government, tell bad man to stop doing this because I don't like it. Well, all right, suck it up. Be a stronger parent. Tell your kid that, hey, we're not Christians, we're Muslims, we're Jewish, whatever. You don't have to participate in that. Give your kids the backbone to say, sorry, coach, that's not me. You do your thing, no problems, but I'm going to do my thing. But parents just reflexively go back to, I don't like that. Government, tell everybody to stop. One size fits all solution, which is not what this country was built on.
Adam's very idealistic. He's talking about good parenting. Adam's like, we gotta rely on some good parenting, man. I think that territory. I think that ship sailed.
There's a dearth of that in this country. I mean, if you want to get to the philosophy of Adam here, I think we fix parents and we fix a lot of what's going on.
You got that right, brother. You got that right.
That's a big ask.
Adam, do you have any thoughts and opinions on the reversals in New York in regards to the concealed carry?
No, I think it's great. I mean, I do. I mean, it's that's my opinion on it. I think it's an awesome opinion. I mean, the Second Amendment is pretty clear. The right to bear arms shall not be infringed. Shall not be infringed as long as you get a permission slip from the government. I mean, that's essentially what the New York law did. Said, hey, you have to give us good reason to enforce your rights. Well, it's not a secondary right. It's a primary right in the Constitution. So important that it was the second one.
And that's something that
the court. Yeah.
And that's something that I really didn't even think about until I was reading and hearing the arguments in regards to the New York case, was that it's not that the government is giving you the right to be able to bear arms. The Constitution is already saying that you have the innate right already as a citizen of this country, and that the government doesn't have the right to interfere with that innate right. And I was like, I don't know how long, I can't believe I've been on this earth for 38 years, and no one has ever really described it to me in that direct ascension. I'm like, you already have the right. The government just cannot infringe on that right.
Well, think about it like this, Anibal, right? Like, do you not, just as a human being, have the right to defend yourself?
Correct.
Right? From attack, from a bear or from a person breaking into your home.
Well, according to Justin Trudeau, you don't.
You have a right just to defend yourself.
What's been mind-blowing to me with all these Supreme Court decisions, and we'll get back to Adam in a second, but it's the fact that it's truly revealing, because they're going, of course, naturally, the media, now that because it's a global media, they're going around. They even asked Boris Johnson about what he thought about, January 6th and all this stuff, and if our democracy.
We don't care what the English think about January.
First of all,
we've given an opinion
we
before.
Showed you all that we don't care what you think.
And thank you, the French, for getting involved.
Well, and look, and I encourage anybody who certainly, if you're right leaning, go out there, watch the interview, because it's hilarious. They ask him, "Is America's democracy in danger?" Which is the liberal narrative right now, and he goes, "No." He goes, "America's still the shining city on the hill."
Oh, Boris Johnson with that.
Oh my God, he goes into this whole Reagan diatribe.
Right.
It was
like shuffling their notes. We sent you the questions ahead of time.
Right, exactly.
We sent your handlers the questions. What is going on?
But it revealed, like in this case, with the gun ruling, it revealed Justin Trudeau, right? And it was, I think this quote came after the shooting in Uvalde, right? But it was also the fact that he literally came out and said that you do not have the right to defend yourself. You do not have your right to defend yourself with a weapon.
Doesn't make sense.
It's like, it's like, well, who gave you the right to say that I can't defend myself with a weapon?
Yeah.
If I may chime in a second there, though, I mean, the Second Amendment actually wasn't built for self-protection per se. It was built to protect citizens and states from an oppressive government. So that's why it's there. It's not to protect yourself from a mugger or a bear or whatever. Yeah, it's a nice little side benefit of it. But the Second Amendment, because it's one of the reasons it's so primary and so important, is that the only way to fight back against an armed government is to have an armed citizenry. That's why it's there. And, you know, anybody that tries to tell you otherwise, I think they just need to reread the Federalist Papers and reread the history of this country. But that's what it is. And actually, I know there's a judge in Polk County. I won't mention his name, but he's a trial judge, so he's not on the appellate bench anywhere. But if you ask him his opinion on the Second Amendment, he'll tell you that it actually involves the citizenry's right to own nuclear weapons. It goes that far.
I want to work for this judge. Who is this judge?
It's hilarious. It's great. I mean, nobody wants nuclear weapons in the hands of individuals, but
especially from someone from Polk County.
If you read the plain language of the Second Amendment, it just says shall not be infringed. It doesn't say shall not be infringed for everything below maybe the dangerousness of a shotgun. Right. Everything else above, we can infringe away at that. Well, because again, the purpose is to defend against the government. If the government has nukes, the people need to have nukes. So
I would imagine around the founding of our country, if Farmer Joe wanted to own a cannon, it was like, hey, dude,
I was
go
just getting
for
ready
it.
to say, I saw, and I don't participate in Twitter, but like I read a comment where somebody was like, and they bring these things up feeling very like sure of themselves, right?
Yeah.
And they're like, well, the bullet wasn't invented until 18 something or other, and so, or 17 whatever, you know. So and the Constitution wasn't ratified until this time. So technically, you can own a musket, and that's it. They're talking about like the actual, like an actual percussion cap bullet, okay?
Sure, yeah.
Not ball and musket.
It's an interesting originalist argument.
Right.
I mean,
they're trying to say, They were trying to take it the other direction. Say, okay, you want to get originalist? Okay, fine. Then when this was enacted, this is what existed. And I'm sitting over here like, okay, you want to go that route? Cool. John Hancock bought cannons for a lot of people. So I want a big ass brass cannon defending my homestead. Okay, so I'm going to have a cannon then defending my homestead.
So you can open an investment account and get a cannon.
Exactly. Well, he was rich and he spent a bunch of his money buying like cannons and weapons. Hey, look, I mean, to Adam's point, and we're not going to go too far down that rabbit hole, but I was a tank commander. I'm qualified to operate an M1A2 Abrams main battle tank because I commanded 4 of them. So I want a tank then. How about that?
There you go.
Now it's 1,500 gallons and at $5.
$5 a gallon.
I mean, excuse me. It's it used to be $1,500. I mean, it's 500 gallons. So at $5, that's $2,500 of fill up. No, excuse me. You would probably use diesel, but anyway.
It's a great way to end this conversation.
To Adam's point, though, it really goes beyond the self-defense thing. I was looking at that. I was mentioning that from like a common sense standpoint. Like,
well,
it's just common sense you can defend yourself. But Adam, I'm glad he laid that out. The founders.
Again, it goes to most people's talking points on the left and the right. They don't understand the founding of this country, why that amendment is there. It's not to protect Granny Smith from a mugger. Well, it's a great benefit if Granny Smith got herself a 6-shooter and she can do that.
Remember when Joe Biden? And so 2 other liberal talking points. One is they'll come out and say like, you don't need an AR-15 to hunt, and it's like, guys, do you really think?
I suck at hunting.
Do you really think that that James Madison was describing? They were like, hey, now we need to make sure that we preserve everyone's ability to go out and hunt squirrel. Right. So we better put this in the freaking Constitution. Yeah. Like, give me a break, guys. This has nothing to do with hunting. That's number one. Yeah. And number two, and number two, since Joe Biden's president, okay, and he's out there talking about what he thinks about the Second Amendment. Okay, this is the same guy who, when there was a previous mass shooting, recommended that you commit a felony by going outside. He said, you take a shotgun and you just go outside and pump 2 blasts up in the air and they're going to go away. It's like, dude, stop giving advice, because that's a felony in the state in which you just described it. You can't walk outside and just shoot your gun like that.
Although I do love the one point that I saw somebody make, which was that, because it isn't about personal self-defense, but it is about defending yourself against a tyrannous government.
That's what it's about.
we should be stocking up on like everybody should be stocking up on as many weapons as possible.
Well, gun purchases have been skyrocketing for years now, and actually, I think in really good news, some of the biggest, of course, it's hard to get the data, but the gun stores can tell you, the biggest purchasers now of guns really is now it's women, it's minorities, specifically Black Americans who are waking up and realizing that this is a right.
Yeah, shout out to my buddy Brian Gordon, who's actually an African American Marine, retired Marine, who has his own line of weapons.
Does he?
Has his own line of.
Cool.
I mean, he's got the bulletproof backpacks. He's got
every
vests,
Marine's a rifleman, buddy.
Every
Marine's a rifleman.
So
the last.
You want to give him a shout out to his business? I mean, what's the business?
Oh yeah, Tactical Society, official Tactical Society.
Tactical Society.
Tactical Society. Yeah, and then he's also got another brand called Guns and Gars. He's also a cigar aficionado.
So Adam, we have one last big court case that came out down the pike in the last few days.
What could that be?
And the big one is
just a small decision.
Just a small decision. The Roe and Casey decisions that were overturned. What are your thoughts on that? Because I love the idea of taking the passion out of it and having just a technical answer to it. Because
tell us what happened?
I've always been told that Roe versus Wade was never on solid ground to begin with, and that eventually someone was going to reverse it because it was not on good technical grounds.
Go back to Joe's point. It's why everybody ran on it.
Yeah.
It's why people would run on the issue because it was vulnerable.
Maybe if Adam can just kind of give us a real quick kind of like, how did we get here? Legally.
Yeah, well, I mean, no less a liberal icon than the late Justice Ginsburg has been saying Roe v. Wade and Casey were on shaky legal ground. They've been on shaky legal ground since it was decided 50 years ago. So, I mean, how we got here, I mean, it's a 50-year journey. It's a 50 years of marches, 50 years of praying, 50 years of lobbying, 50 years of, pregnancy centers, not Planned Parenthood, which doesn't plan any parenthood, but through, help people through pregnancies, helping getting kids adopted, helping young mothers, through difficult pregnancies, all that stuff. It's a long, long journey. But with regards to this specific case, I think I always mispronounce either Dodds or Dobbs. I can't remember which. But the Dobbs decision, we'll go with that. I forget which state. I think it was Kentucky. Had an extremely restrictive abortion law, and it got challenged, of course. So it got to the court, and after the Trump appointees, we can kind of see the writing on the wall saying, hey, this may be the one. This may be the right case that gets Roe and Casey overturned. And sure enough, it did. Now, what that doesn't mean, which you see all the talking heads and the liberals and the celebrities exploding over, what it doesn't mean is that abortion is outlawed. I mean, it is far, far, far from that. You will hear some people say that this is an activist court for overturning precedent. No, an activist court would have been one that would have read rights into the Constitution that don't exist there, which is what Roe and Casey did. So, for example, an activist conservative court would have said something like, you know what, we're going to definitively say that's a life in the womb and that it's protected and that abortions are outlawed and it's a constitutional issue because substantive due process says so. That is not what they did. What they did is a very conservative action of saying, look, read the Constitution. The word abortion is not mentioned in there anywhere. There is no right to an abortion, and we are not going to read one in there. We are going to correct this mistake that was made, half a century ago, and we're going to return the issue to the states, which is where it belongs. We're going to return it to the people to decide whether and how abortion should be legal or illegal. It's a very, very conservative decision just from a jurisprudence standpoint, not even a political standpoint. So, but what it didn't do is outlaw abortion. Yes, there may be some states where it kind of indirectly outlaws abortion if they had trigger laws in place where abortion would be outlawed, assuming Roe or Casey got overturned. But directly, it did no such thing.
I believe we have 13 states that had trigger laws on the books waiting for this decision. And so the liberal media is really pushing the idea that this has completely stopped all abortions altogether. The Canadian Prime Minister, thank you, Kimberly Davis, to make this comment that Trudeau said to come to Canada for your abortions because you have body autonomy, even though you need a vaccine to get into Canada at the moment. So that was a pretty funny.
Yeah, my body, my choice, but only on issues that I really care about.
And I think a lot of these things have opened up the hypocrisy when it comes to the left and their ideology, because now we're I think now we have to define what a woman is, and that's something
that's hard to do, bro.
Birthing people. There's no such thing as a woman. It's birthing people.
It's so
right?
insane that women that I guess I can say this out loud, that women are allowing men to continue to make decisions for themselves, and now women can't even say that they're women anymore. I mean, this is the epitome of masculinity.
I love it when they're like, men, a bunch of men deciding what women are doing. It's like, well, you didn't have a problem with the all male court that decided Roe v. Wade, that created this thing. You didn't have a problem then.
Yeah. And again, and then
and now they can define what a woman is when they want to. But if you ask them in other contexts, what is a woman? I'm not a biologist. I can't answer that question.
I literally had an insurance company ask me the other day about something and about damage or something. I said, I don't know. I'm not in the skilled trades.
Well, and Adam, we were talking actually before the show, and now I found it just in time. Perfect. By the way, Senator John Cornyn's following me on Twitter. I didn't know that.
Hey,
shout out to Senator Cornyn. Yeah, what's up with
didn't
that?
He just vote against guns? Traitor.
I don't know about that.
Didn't he voted for the national red flag law? Didn't he?
For the bill?
Yeah, for the national red flag law.
I don't know. I didn't see.
Yeah, they're trying to put. Hey, Adam, the Senate, the Senate's got this bipartisan. Hold on, I got to ask. Well, we got the lawyer here, and he's not charging us by the hour, so
allegedly.
We got to get what we can get out of this attorney. I mean, they're expensive. No, the Congress is trying to put together bipartisan legislation after the mass shooting, okay? And it looks like they have something that's going to go through. If it's a federal red flag law thing, is this going to change with any of the stuff from the Supreme Court just did, or is this red flag stuff?
It's not going to change what the Supreme Court just did, but it's another issue that's certainly likely to find its way to the Supreme Court's desk. The way I look at it, these red flag laws, or these risk protection orders, as they're called in Florida, is, I mean, at the state levels, they've been deemed constitutional as long as there are certain elements of due process. And I don't necessarily agree with that. The idea that you can take somebody's gun away from them just simply because the sheriff's office says, we think this guy's a threat. And then you get the due process for trial after the fact. But in the meantime, you've had your weapons removed from you. So, but at the federal level, even if it's constitutional at the state level, again, because the way the Constitution reads there is a well-regulated militia being necessary to a free state or a free society, the right to bear arms shall not be infringed. So states seem to have, just by the plain language of the Second Amendment, a little bit more leeway to regulate, weapons and firearms possession and how they do it. And as long as there's due process, okay. But at the federal level, to me, that seems completely unconstitutional, that there can somehow be a federal law that we can take your weapons, on the front end and then give you the due process on the back end. And that way, if we screwed up, well, no harm, no foul, we'll give you your weapons back, a month, 2 months later. I just had one of these hearings in Tampa and we won it. And then it was kind of funny. The next day, Sheriff Krishad was at a Ybor Chamber luncheon.
Sheriff who?
About it. Sheriff Chronister.
Okay, got it.
And so I asked him about these RPO laws. And I was like, hey, what are you doing to ensure that your agency isn't abusing these things? And he's like, oh, well, we check them diligently. And, quite frankly, I think we have 100% success prosecution rate on these. And I was like, that's kind of scary. If they're getting rubber stamped, and plus I knew it was full of shit because I had just won one the day before.
Yeah.
But at the same time,
meaning,
is it really
wait a minute, Adam, you mean that you got this guy's guns back for him? Is that what you're saying? Or guy, girl, whoever?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it was a guy. A guy. Yeah, I got his weapons back for him. But the point being, though, is if a court is really rubber stamping them, which, again, fortunately, the judge I had, Judge Pomponio, shout out to her. She did a great job at the hearing and ruled the right way. But if they are majority rubber stamped kind of things, is it really due process? I mean, is it just kind of faux due process if a court's just rubber stamping everything? So, but in any event, to answer your original question, at the federal level, I don't know if it's constitutional. I would say that would be on shaky ground. State level, I think it's already been decided, and they found some constitutionality there with safeguards of due process. But federal one, yeah, that seems shaky.
Well, and I was only bringing up Senator Cornyn for the simple idea that following the ruling or the decision on Roe versus Wade, he came out and said, well, now do Plessy versus Ferguson and Brown versus Board of Education, which made liberals just doubly explode. Just at the thought that that the Supreme Court would take a look at those. Obviously, they're not going to, because there needs to be, I think, a case in the system that would cause them to go and revisit those decisions. But they very well could overturn those just based on the very foundation that they used for the Roe versus Wade overturning, right?
Oh, no, they could. And I think even Clarence Thomas hinted at this, which is amusing, of course, because he's a black man married to a white woman. But even he hinted that, some of those decisions, like I think it's Loving that legalized interracial marriage, he's like, that could be on the table because it used substantive due process much in the way they did in Roe, as well as gay marriage and Obergefell. That could be on the table because it relied on the same reasoning. But again, what liberals are misconstruing is he's not saying, hey, I'm in favor of outlawing these things. He's just saying, constitutionally speaking, these are state issues.
And we need to clean them up.
Right.
We need to clean it up.
Yeah.
Right.
But to Joe's point, though, yes, somebody's got to sue on it. Somebody's got to, make a case or controversy out of it. And then it's got to find its way to the Supreme Court's desk for it even to get brought up, which I don't think it's likely. The
governor just signed, actually, I think it goes into effect, went into effect today, the 15-week kind of window, that for, abortion procedures. And of course, there was a big demonstration up in Tallahassee and all that.
Of course.
It seems like legislatively we're in a pretty good place. Doesn't change a whole lot. Do you see that kind of being the case going forward here in Florida?
Oh yeah. I mean, pretty much the way I read that the Dobbs decision is a state can pretty much do whatever they want on the issue of abortion. It's a state issue. So certainly 15 weeks with an exception for life of mother, and I don't think there's even any exception for rape or incest in this one. It's going to be constitutional. Now, again, whether it's good policy or not is a debate for the people, for the legislators,
right,
which is the way our system is designed. So I make no comment on whether it's good or not, although you could probably guess which way I've come down on. It's good. I'll just say it. But in any event, it's not going to change much in Florida law. Florida's pretty much got a blank slate to do whatever we want.
Yeah, well, and that's the other thing is again, there's this perception that, oh gosh, now it's legal, and it's like, no, like it literally changes nothing here in Florida. Like everything kind of goes on as usual. And so, Adam, man, thank you so much for spending time with us. Certainly, far more generous with your time than we had originally anticipated. But great to have your insight, your expertise on this, and we hope to have you back at some other time, maybe some more positive topics. But thanks for being a great expert for us tonight.
Well, tell everybody how we can find them.
Yeah, well, you can find me. I'm in Valrico with Valrico Law Group. You can find us at 813-397-3965 or at TampaCrimeAttorneys.com or ValricoLawGroup.com.
Adam, real quick, tell us all the different things. Like if somebody needs an attorney, what are some of the areas that you're covering that you can help people with?
Sure. Me personally, I do, of course, criminal defense. I'm board certified in criminal trial law. I also do some personal injury. But our law firm handles everything from family law, estate planning, tax, probate, insurance issues. We're pretty much a full-service law firm. And if we can't handle it, we'll find an excellent attorney that can do it for you.
Nice.
All right, Adam, thanks again, buddy. We'll definitely be having you on again soon. Appreciate your time and hope the family's doing great. And, thanks again for your time.
We are. Thank you. And always appreciate a chance to get a little wonky. So have a good evening, fellas.
Well, then you'll be hearing from us very soon then. Have a great night.
Take it easy, guys. Yep. Bye.
Thank you again, everybody, for watching The Yard Sign, the most important and relevant podcast in politics. Your host, Johnny Torres. Thank you, everybody. I think we did that kind of bulk of a topic justice, given that we've committed almost the entire hour to it. But there was a lot to uncover there.
That was a lot.
Yeah, there was no way we were going to get out of 3
No,
topics.
and again, I mean, Adam just did a fantastic job of really breaking it down in layman's terms and putting it in a way that kind of simplifies it for everybody. And so hopefully you gained something from from it, gain some knowledge from it, and some insight on as to kind of really what the next number of months is going to look like. What I'm really looking forward to is seeing, here very soon, because it's already happening, is the polling that's going to come of this, whether or not it is going to move the needles for Democrats in November. Is this going to be the rallying issue for people to come out and vote? Trump himself said this may kind of backfire, for the midterms and be the thing that motivates the liberal vote to come out in the midterms, despite the poor approval ratings by Joe Biden. We'll see if that's the case. We still have a long time to go.
And that's what I'm saying. If this was done in October or September, then it would be a real big issue for
it'd be brutal. Yeah,
but we're in the middle of summer.
Yeah.
These people are not going to care when gas goes to $5 to $6 a gallon.
Yep.
I mean, there's just so many other topics to be
people
discussed.
are going to vote their pocketbooks,
and I think that's going to be what's going to happen. I don't disagree with Sanjay and some of the other guys that are talking about that this is a really big issue, and I agree. But at the end of the day, I think what's going to happen is that people are going to vote their pocketbooks and are going to be okay with it going back to the states, because some states are just more liberal than others.
Well, I don't know about you guys, but I personally would like to thank President Biden for reaffirming that tax breaks actually incentivize and encourage the economy to head in a positive direction.
What did he say?
Well, he's waiving the federal tax on gas.
You know for how long though?
Oh, I'm sure it's probably like a heartbeat.
It's only 3 months. So by the time it's time for elections, it's going to go back up. And then there's going to be a huge increase in gas prices again come
this
the middle of October.
Literally their own worst enemy.
They have no idea what they're doing. But I digress. We will talk about him at the end of the show.
Yeah.
What is the next topic,
All
Johnny?
right. So again, thank you everybody for watching. Don't forget you can catch the audio version of our podcast on your favorite podcast platform. We thank everybody who's been downloading the episodes. We get huge numbers there, and please continue to share the show, like it, leave us a review so other people can find the show as well. And again, you can find the audio version of this podcast on your favorite podcast platform just by searching the yard sign. We also want to thank Community Patriots for their support of this program. They are an incredible organization doing great work out there, not only in the community by supporting the community and making this place just a little bit better to live in, but also by encouraging people to get involved in the political process. It's a great kind of entryway to learn about how campaigns work, how to get to meet candidates, how to get to meet elected officials. And then like I said, they're doing a lot of philanthropy work as well. And so there's a Tampa chapter, there's a Pinellas County chapter. If you'd like to start a chapter or learn more about the organization, just visit community-patriots.com. That's community-patriots.com. And again, we appreciate them for the support of this program. Our next topic is Gillum meets the feds. Not a whole lot really to digest here, other than to really just talk about the bullet that we dodged as a state here. Talk about just two completely different universes. I think we would be in an almost completely alternate universe right now if Andrew Gillum had been elected to governor of Florida. Obviously, we don't know. He probably wouldn't have been found naked on the floor of a hotel room, passed out from doing drugs.
Allegedly.
He would have been passed out naked at a hella party at the governor's mansion.
Or probably someone's house in Tallahassee.
Think of the governor's mansion parties that we missed out on.
Oh, my gosh.
It's been ragers, man.
So much fun.
Throwing ragers.
Phone parties. Those Miami phone parties.
Good times.
Phone parties at the governor's mansion.
Yeah. Well, and again, it's unfortunate because he's a young guy. He obviously had a promising political career. I thought this guy was going to resurface as really kind of like a Stacey Abrams, in Georgia,
running for Senate or something.
She was. They were going to be a force to be reckoned with.
He was raising money.
Started.
He was raising tons of money.
Stacey never goes away, man. What is it with that lady?
No, she's still governor of
why?
Georgia.
I don't understand the appeal. I don't get it.
I think
something's going on. She's got like pictures or something. And I
think for her it's the fact that again, she's a very strong woman. She speaks out against the powers that be. She seems to be filling all the gaps that Georgia Democrats had. They don't have strong leadership, just like in this state. Think about it. what does it say about the Florida Democratic Party that Charlie Crist is their best candidate to go up against Ron DeSantis?
Bottom of the barrel,
That's
man.
a problem.
They just
He's not even a Democrat.
It's like when you're looking for a car and you just go to the buy here pay here lot. I mean, Charlie Crist is the buy here pay here lot, of politics.
And Floridians know it, and that's the biggest problem. We all know who he is and how much of a fan he goes on either side of the topic.
No, my buddy Christian Camara, who he's a longtime friend of mine. He sends me stuff all the time. He found an old email. And I think Newsmax might have been the one that came up with this, but it was an old email from when Charlie Crist was running for Senate back in 2010 as a Republican. All right, it says for immediate release, February 9th, 2010, and a phone number and everything. Headline: in case you missed it, Crist, I'm a true blue Reagan conservative. Subheadline: I'm anti-tax, pro-life, pro-gun Republican.
A blue.
That's what he needed to.
Conservative.
That
12 years ago. Just 12 years ago.
That was what he needed to say at the time.
Sure.
And here's my. Other than the fact that it makes you look like a sad person who just wants a job at all costs. I don't like seeing people compromise their character and their integrity just for a gig. So not only do I not like that, because I think most Americans don't even like that. We even if you don't like a politician, you appreciate the politicians that at least say what they mean and they have convictions and they stand up for their convictions. Not only, but that's not the only issue is that the guy is not only weak, but he's willing to say whatever he needs to say to get elected.
Yeah.
And it's like the flip-flopper of all flip-floppers. Like, if he had an opportunity to get elected as a Republican, he would absolutely do it.
In a heartbeat.
And I just kind of have the, I mean, people do learn and change some of their beliefs in life, but I kind of have this standing rule that if somebody is in there, if a man's in his 50s and 60s and all of a sudden completely shit, like something doesn't add up.
Right.
How did you believe something your entire life?
Yeah.
We're talking like political philosophy. And then all of a sudden you're in your 60s and all of a sudden you're on the complete opposite side of things. Well, now hold on a second.
Right.
Were you lying then or were you lying now?
Sure.
For convenience. Which one is it?
It's the convenient part. You have to go in that position. There's no way they can argue that point.
Well,
but going back to, I really want to hit back on Gillum because the simple fact is he was the media darling of the 2000s. In the 2020s.
Well, again, he was trying to be like the next Obama, right?
Well, yes.
So there's a quick rundown. The Miami Herald said in 2018 that Andrew Gillum will be the governor of Florida, and they did a whole render with that. Vox made a whole thing that he was going to be the president nominee in 2020.
Yep.
And this is the thing, and I wanted to put this out, just because a superstar or someone very famous or an influencer endorses you means absolutely nothing.
Right.
Rihanna, the superstar musician pop star, endorsed Gillum during his campaign, and she has 132 million active followers,
Which means nothing in Florida.
Which
if you
means
think,
doesn't matter.
Right.
In politics. I don't care what anyone says. And
Yeah.
Johnny and I, and we've all hit this beat multiple times. Yeah, you got 1 million people looking at your video. You know how many of those people live in Florida that actually vote?
Right.
Maybe less than 10%. I mean, that's just how the world
I think it's less than 5.
I think it's less than 5. And those that actually will change their
Right.
mind because of it?
Right.
Ugh.
Well, didn't Kid Rock endorse Donald Trump?
Yeah, but that's Kid Rock.
Yeah.
Anybody can get. I'm just saying.
Right.
I'm just saying you can go get these cool endorsements,
Yeah.
and that's great. But when you're at that level, like Johnny's saying, it doesn't really matter at that point.
I could pay
not gonna
$10
move
to
the
get
needle.
someone really famous to say happy birthday to me. I mean, it's just buying votes.
And the way politics has changed now, because remember, the really valuable endorsement was the kind of past, those elected leaders of the past, who, still had a lot of political clout.
Yeah.
So maybe it was, former governors and former senators.
It's almost
and
a liability now.
Oh, absolutely.
People kind of question that. In fact, I'm not going to say who it was. When I was running my campaign, the manager, other people, wanted to get a certain endorsement. And I asked, I said, do we need that? I mean, is that really necessary? I knocked 15,000 doors. I talk to plenty of people. I can promise you that certain endorsements don't matter. They don't care.
Yeah.
You know, once you're talking to them on their front doorstep, that's what matters. And I got to give credit to this former elected official who actually kind of texted us back and said, "Hey, listen, do you want my endorsement? Because I want to make sure that you're good." Yeah. Like, it was almost like, "Hey, listen, I support you, but don't get me involved. If you don't want, like, don't feel
if you don't
like,
need to.
Yeah, don't feel like you need to. You need my support. You don't need my support. You're doing fine.
Right.
You're good."
Which in some cases it helps to have the former person who held that seat.
Yes.
If they're kind of moving on.
Yes. But I really appreciated the fact that a former elected official said, "Listen, I understand that I can be controversial in some circles. Sure. So if I'm going to hurt you, just do your thing, bro. You're good. Like,
right.
you don't have to bring, no offense taken."
Yeah.
Like, they understood where they stood with the voters. Mm-hmm. And, Trump right now is probably the biggest endorsement that you can get. But you know what? In some circles, you don't want that endorsement.
Yeah, right.
And Trump's a businessman, he gets it.
So if you're in Miami-Dade County, if you're in Broward County, Orange County, that may not be an endorsement that you want to, put out there.
He may or may not run one day, and if he is going to run, and if he were to be elected, he would want to have he would want to have congressmen, senators that are with him. Yeah. But he's smart enough to know that you might be running for Congress, and you might go to Trump and say, "Hey, listen, I'm with you. I'll whatever. I liked you, and I'd love to see you get elected. Please don't support my opponent. But in my race, I really don't. I really can't come to you.
Well, looking at,
because it's not going to look good in the
looking
in
at
the race,
Congressional District 13. I mean, Anna Paulina Luna, who's running again, and she's ran previously, has had the Trump endorsement all along.
Yeah. Does she push it or no?
I mean, she puts it out there. Okay. Yeah, she puts it out there quite a bit.
It's Pinellas County. It flips back and forth. It flips back and forth.
So it's great for the primary. It gives her an edge in the primary.
And then she's walking it back,
But then how do you come back to the center, to win a general election in a very purple District 13?
It's not as purple as it once
Not anymore.
was.
No. So, I'm just talking about previously.
They took a lot out of Gus Bilirakis' district to make sure that it was as red as it possibly can be. So whoever wins the general or the primary in 13 will win the general.
Really?
And
how's that looking?
It's been moved. Well, we'll go into that part at the end. We'll talk about that later.
Right.
But just to make sure everyone's aware of it, the 18 counts of the indictment further gives the alleged allegations of wire fraud and third party providing payroll services or payroll payments to Gillum to be used for his personal use. So this is a big deal. It was during his mayoral times when he was a mayor of Tallahassee. So it's a big deal what's happening.
That was the thing. This stuff preceded
the
governor's race.
But wait a minute, Anibal, are you saying that the charges stem from his time as a mayoral candidate?
As the mayor of Tallahassee.
Okay, when he was running for governor.
No. This happened when
I thought the issue was that he was using PAC money to basically live off of.
So they're saying that now. But back then, he got off of a board for some odd reason, and he was unable to. I guess he was just not earning enough as mayor,
right?
And so then he and this other individual, Letter Hicks, decided to start funneling money from the organizations and campaigns and nonprofits and everything else to do either criminal reform or criminal something. Yeah. And instead, they just pocketed the money. They actually didn't do anything with it. So that's where these allegations are coming from. And again, we've known about these.
Well, because he did start again a very similar kind of PAC. After he lost, and it was going to be. Everybody thought he was basically copying the Stacey Abrams example.
And he should have done that.
But he didn't do. He would have been a rock star.
So the viewers understand a political action committee. So in a campaign, your campaign account, what we call hard money, that stuff can only be used for direct campaign expenses.
Correct.
Like paying a consultant, doing mail, doing social media. I mean, it can pay for pizza for volunteers, but it's got to be direct campaign expense.
To be a link.
Yeah, and you file reports monthly, and then you file or quarterly, then monthly, then bi-weekly towards the end, or every week at the end. I mean, you're filing, financial statements, right? It's very clear where the money goes. Okay, but then you have political action committees, and that's what we call soft money. And political action committees can support political activities. They're not directly related to the campaign, and they're not supposed to be intertwined with the campaign. But supposedly Gillum, and he had this PAC which had like $1 million left over, which the Democrats were upset about because he lost by like 30-something thousand votes, and people are like, "Dude, you left the campaign with $1 million." Like 30-something. 3 million in the bank.
Yeah,
I thought it was a little over $1 million, but either way it goes, dude. You left like over $1 million in your bank account, or in the PAC at least. You got to spend the money on the campaign. You can't finish a campaign with anything left on the field.
Right.
You gotta or I should say the other way, with everything left on the field. You have to leave it all out there on the field. You cannot keep behind.
In fact, a lot of campaigns end up with debt.
Yeah, sometimes. And so apparently his campaign, which granted it's statewide, so it's a lot more money, but you got over $1 million in the campaign, in the PAC
for the margin by which he lost.
Right.
That's at least that's a bunch of mailers. There's mailers.
They've done the math for the amount of money that he left in that bank account and the margin by which he lost. Had he spent that money, he probably could have won.
Yeah, so it's 30,000 votes. A really good, solid ad targeting women or a certain demographic or whatever.
Jacksonville, Orlando.
Yeah,
just getting out a GOTV marketing plan.
Yeah, or something like spend an extra $500K in Miami, an extra $500K in Jacksonville, or whatever. He could have flipped the election. So everybody's mad about that. But now here's the issue: he's got this PAC money left over. The money's there. Election's over. What is he doing with it? Well, you can. Okay, I'm not an election law attorney. Okay, but you can have a PAC and him say, like Stacey Abrams, okay, well, fine. I lost the election. We're gonna go on the campaign trail and we're gonna push an issue, voter integrity,
voter registration,
whatever. And he can go and do political activity, and so he can spend money from that PAC to support that political activity. And that can include things like, let's say you're meeting with a donor, or let's say you're meeting with a political entity, and you're going to do so. Okay, and so you pay for the meals, maybe some travel involved in that. There's a hotel room. Okay, but you can't live off of this PAC.
You can't have a power or water bills going through the PAC.
Right, and supposedly he's dipping into that PAC.
You can do consulting fees, and you can pay through.
You can't pay for your crack with it.
No.
Yeah, your pills.
You can't just pull cash
or your male
out of
escorts.
Oh my
dude,
oh, come on.
Isn't it
really? We're gonna go there.
Well, I mean, it is what it is.
It didn't say it in the article.
Yes, it did.
I'm reading the Fox News article.
Well, and I don't want to sound
Miami Herald article said,
he had mail it. No, he had mail.
I'm talking about today. I'm talking about the articles as of last week.
No, well, they don't.
But
it doesn't behoove them to.
But remember who took the pictures of the guy?
Yeah, the stripper
on the ground, the male stripper. It's like, here's the thing. Not to sound like a prude and whatnot. And I know, any politician, no matter how they talk and sound, can get caught doing stuff, and no one's perfect and whatnot. But when you're looking at a politician, I think you do need to be concerned about their character. I think it's worth noting that they've been married successfully, that they're raising their kid, that their kids are, one of the biggest.
Well, that was the thing on the surface. He checked off all those boxes.
Yeah, I mean, but he
seemed like a very safe bet for Democrats.
But there were people that knew better.
There were a lot of stories.
I know a guy who was I know a guy who was bartending in Tallahassee that could have told you that Gillum had issues.
Yep.
And there are people out there that know.
It was a well-known secret.
Yes, there are people out there in the process that know, and actually that's on some of the consultants. Like, if you know this guy has character issues, it's like, you got to clean this stuff up. You got to straighten yourself out before you go run for governor, because if you're running for, even though mayor is a big deal, some of these races, your opponents just don't spend the time or effort to dig up every little thing about you. But when you're running for governor of the state, there's so much money involved, and it's such a big deal, and power. It's such a big deal. If you've got a girl, if you're married and you have a mistress, it's going to get discovered. Like, people are going to find this stuff out.
If you have a
clean your life up.
If you have a secret kid, they're going to find out. Everything always gets found out.
The fact that the media didn't tells you that either they were complicit.
They knew.
They were.
They knew.
Yeah. or they're just horrible at their jobs.
In fact, knowing your own, actually, candidates. I mean, I've heard that campaigns will do opposition research on themselves.
Right.
I mean, you need to know your own issues. Where are you vulnerable?
The consultants will do that.
Where is your candidate vulnerable? And so when you say the media knew, of course they knew, because they know where they need to stay away from. Hey, we don't need to be interviewing his wife right now.
Yeah.
Like, they're not getting along right now.
Right.
We don't need to be interviewing her. Like, they know what's going on.
Yeah. Yeah. So, so things continue to get worse for Andrew Gillum, and unfortunately, it seems like he may end up in a federal prison at the end of the day.
That's crazy.
Which again would be a horrible outcome for a young guy who had so much going for him.
Is his wife still with him? She stuck with him after the.
I think it's 15 months per violation.
Are they really going after him, or are they going after somebody else?
I think they're going.
Are they trying to get to the payroll company or something?
The reason why they're going after him is because he probably has access to a lot more people that we aren't aware
you know what I mean?
And that's probably what they're going for. Because
maybe they're trying to get him to flip.
But then they've known about the They say they've known about this since like 17. So like this isn't something that they.
But that just means the feds. I wish Adam was here for that. That just means the feds were getting their stuff straight. They were getting everything lined up because when they drop the indictment, dude, you're done. You're basically.
Can you imagine if our governor was
indicted?
Yes.
You imagine if they would have had to go
halfway through his term?
Yeah.
I would have loved. It would have been. It would be insane. It would be insane.
Now, if it was a Republican, they would have tipped off CNN, and SWAT teams would have raided the governor's mansion.
Yeah, like we would have had body cams everywhere.
Yeah,
Would DeSantis fight back if there was a raid on the government?
Remember how they did? Remember how they did call the state militia? Remember how they did Oliver Stone?
Yeah.
When they were going after Trump's guy, Oliver Stone, they like sent SWAT teams to his house. Like, this dude is not a Roger Stone. Sorry, Oliver Stone. Roger Stone. They sent SWAT teams. CNN was on site. It's like, really? Like,
although I'm pretty sure the feds had looked into Oliver Stone as well. But.
Yeah, and so with a Democrat, they probably would have been like, "Hey, you want to come on down and just do this quiet? Let's do this quietly. Just come on down. We're not going to make a scene of it, but obviously the media's going to get hold of it. But we're not going to show any pictures of you in handcuffs." If that was DeSantis, they would have literally kicked in the doors of the governor's mansion. Yeah. The FBI would have kicked in the door with a SWAT team and everything.
That's right. They probably they would have made a
big deal. Oh, they would have made a big deal out of
helicopters.
The body cam footage would have made it into the news media within 24 hours.
Yeah. All right, everybody. Thank you for watching The Yard Sign. With me tonight, Anibal David Cabrera, Joe Wicker, and your host, Johnny Torres. Thank you, everybody, for watching. Again, don't forget to follow us on all of our social media platforms. But you can also subscribe to the audio version of our podcast over at the Tech Overlords at Google, Apple, Spotify, Audible, Amazon, iHeartRadio, Odyssey, and Samsung podcast platforms, and many more. You can find us worldwide. In fact, shout out to all our international listeners. And if you missed any part of the visual portion of this show and you'd like to see our beautiful faces, you can do so on Facebook and YouTube. Again, just search for The Yard Sign. We're going to close out tonight's show with our final topic, polls and primaries, as we love to do, because, man, the polls just are not getting any better for President Biden. We also have some developments here at the local level with primaries, again, kind of still being somewhat in flux, and some others just making it miserable for themselves because they again, a lot of rookie mistakes we're finding out about.
No sense
here at the local level. But let's start off first with the kind of the low hanging fruit, which is Joe Biden's approval rating continues to plummet. I think it's down to 35%, I believe.
We are currently hovering around 36% approval rating. It is now the worst it has ever been for his administration. And we're currently now in
probably any administration.
Carter territory.
That's Jimmy Carter territory. I was going to say.
If it gets below 34, I think it goes into who was before Hoover? Anyways, it goes into like the 1910s of approval ratings. So
if this maintains, does Trump pretty much walk right into a re-election?
I don't think so. I think you run into the same problem as you run in before, is that do people decide if Biden runs again, which I think he will, if he's competent and still breathing, he will run again. And he is the only one that could possibly
So if the ventilator's still working, is what
I
you're
think
saying.
Biden is the only one that could possibly beat Trump. Because at the end of the day, you have the same question. Would you rather Trump or Biden, and people are going to.
That's an interesting point.
And that might be it might be a closer race than you think. If you do Trump Kamala, Trump Budapest, Trump whatever the other guys are names, I think Trump takes it in a landslide. It's insane.
Beto.
Yeah.
What's his name? Francis. His real name. Is that not cultural appropriation?
Oh, Beto
or
O'Rourke.
what?
Oh my gosh.
Your name is Francis.
He starts speaking Spanish. I want to shoot myself. It's absolutely
his name
insane.
is. I just want to say it again. Like, let me say it with a Southern accent. Francis. But he appropriates Beto.
I've seen Mexican liberals actually out there supporting this guy.
Oh,
and
Rourke.
I'm like, how that offends me.
Rourke.
Like, it's like, how dare you to support this
Irish.
this fraud?
Let them keep on doing it because we keep on winning very blue districts in the border towns of Texas, so might as well keep on doing it.
I mean, I know this name might not mean a lot maybe to the Hispanic community. It's O'Rourke. You know where that comes from? It's O'Rourke. There's an apostrophe after the O.
His
that
people
is not
colonized
even
something.
That is Irish. That is Irish. Okay, that's like as far away from a Spanish-speaking country as you can almost get. Come on.
Anyways, Trump still holds a 93% approval in regards to endorsements. So
a what?
A 93%
success. You mean
success rate?
I'm sorry, success in regards to the primaries.
Is he just picking winners though?
I mean,
is it his endorsement?
Isn't that the whole point?
Is his endorsement though?
So it is his endorsement.
No, but what I'm saying is, are you?
He's not making the obvious. He's not making the obvious choices.
No, he's not.
We're trying to say that there's correlation. Are you saying that his endorsement is correlating to those wins, or that he's already picking? He's already picking strong candidates.
There are a lot of individuals that beat the normal Republican nominee, and they beat out in their primaries
because of his endorsement.
He has done amazing in the Senate. He has yet to lose a race.
I'm not trying to take anything away from him. No. I would want his endorsement.
Are you going to take something away from Trump?
I would want his endorsement.
In regards to the House, there's only been 4. Now there are more than one loss. It's 4 losses now, but 88 wins in the House. There's still, I think, there's a bunch more.
Goes to show you how interesting. I wonder if like the more local the race gets, again, the more controversial that endorsement becomes.
I did the research, and actually, the majority of his losses were from races in Georgia. So that was quite interesting to see that a bunch of the races
Georgia
pushed in.
Well, because
Georgia's going purple.
Because
Georgia
he's been at odds with Kemp, right? Like he's been fighting with Kemp. He's been fighting with the Rosenbretten, whatever that burger guy's name is. Yeah, the state attorney, Rosenberger. I forget his name.
Attorney General.
Yeah, the Secretary of State in Georgia.
Right.
He's been going at it with him. He's been going at it with Kemp.
And Kemp both won
Purdue. They did, and see that's what's interesting to me. Kemp got sideways with Trump, and then the Rosen guy.
But see, in Georgia,
he won too.
In Georgia, what I think that did was it actually helped. It helped Kemp. In the anti-Trump vote. You know what I mean? It helped Republicans who don't like Trump come out and support him.
So the conversation now is what is going to happen now that we have all these court cases that have been come down the pike, and if it's going to hurt or help when it comes to this. The guy that runs Barstool said that this is hurting more Republicans than
he also
Democrats.
doesn't agree with them. So
and also he's a New York New England type of guy, so we were never going to get the votes there to begin with.
He's a Rockefeller Republican, as he used to say.
Yes.
And so, but again, the purpose is how do you build that coalition? Because Trump lost his second term because of the white male vote, did not show up compared to where they did in 2016.
Yeah, the party guy gambler, shockingly, is in favor of abortion.
Yeah.
And so now we need to figure out what that's going to look like. I will say this. I think the polls are showing that Biden is in a position that I don't think anyone was expecting to see that in this cycle. His numbers are just too low. I don't know where he comes from. He comes out of this because I think
we're trying to close out with predictions, right? I think, and then what we're doing.
Well, no, we're going to talk about this, and then we're going to talk more.
We're just talking about where these races are at.
Okay.
The interesting thing is actually back to what you were saying when we were talking about this with Adam, is that I think this actually makes it now obviously much more of a campaign issue. I think every candidate at every level is going to get this question about the abortion
pro-life,
issue. Are they pro-life? To what extent? That sort of thing. It's going to be, I think, again, aside from the economy, in the overall state of things, I think it's going to be the defining issue for a lot of campaigns.
And look, if you're a candidate and you happen to be watching, I hate to tell you, you're going to own that issue at the front door.
Yeah.
Yep.
You have to own it. If somebody asks you, what is your stance on abortion? And you do anything other than say, I'm here or I'm here, then you've messed up.
You really should just
you got to own it. You got to own
it. What the state position
and
is,
let it be what it is.
Be what it is.
Honestly, and my answer would be I support Governor DeSantis' position on the issue.
So
let them figure out what that means.
I know, a conversation that people have had is that there's just no more compromise anymore in this country.
Right,
and I think a first trimester is a great compromise for a lot of people. Now, do I believe in abortion? No, I completely don't believe in abortion. However, I live in a pluralistic society. And if the French, who have decided this in the 70s, were okay with the first trimester as being the marker of where we say yes or no, then I'm okay with that.
People don't realize that America was actually way more liberal on abortion than much of the world.
Mm-hmm.
You think of European countries as being like uber liberal, right?
Yeah.
Like whatever's going to happen.
They're also very religious.
They're going to do first. I think maybe historically, but yeah, I mean, France had limited abortion to 14 weeks and below, I think, and the United States was more permissive than that. It's like, how is the United States, because we're actually a very conservative country on a lot of issues,
correct,
right? Especially socially. You don't know that when you live here, but when you travel outside
the rest of the world,
you travel outside the world, you
quickly
realize, wow, the United States is actually kind of like old school, on a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
So how is it that the United States was more permissive of abortion than other countries? It's just one of those things. But
it's funny because there's been a lot of news coverage, especially international news coverage, that have made reference to that. The fact that we are very much a center-right leaning country as a whole. Including Democrats, including, like in general, like overall, we're considered a right-leaning country.
Because until recently, actually, I mean, I think if you go back and talk to your parents even, or definitely grandparents, I mean, a long time ago, the difference between Republicans and Democrats wasn't as wide as it is. I love this. I love how the star is just rising.
Let it happen. I don't care.
Last week it was a dog.
No,
this
don't
week
worry about it. Let it happen.
It's perfect.
The Lord giveth and taketh away.
But the difference between the parties wasn't as wide.
Just leave it.
As it is today. And today they couldn't be farther apart. Which is why a lot of people left the Democratic Party, because it just went off the rails. But I was going to say really quickly about the races or whatever. I think the Republicans are going to dominate in the midterms all over the map. Okay, but I do, and I think that it's questionable though come the next presidential election, because anything can happen over the course of the next 2.5 years. Anything. But I will say this: I don't think Joe Biden is going to be the nominee for 2024, no matter what.
As long as he's breathing,
I don't think he's the nominee.
He is the nominee.
You can't do that.
I don't disagree.
How do they do
I don't
it?
disagree with you, but these people are so narcissists that they're going, and these neocons.
They deserve to lose. If they put them up, they deserve to lose.
Again,
Let's be honest. I mean, Republicans did it with Reagan. The only difference was that Reagan was in a good spot.
But he was
Reagan was killing it.
Trusted
things were going
Nancy.
this way.
I trusted
With Reagan,
Nancy.
things were going like this.
Because I trusted his wife
and he had
to make the decisions that needed to get made.
And he had a cool Springer Spaniel, and it's a Spaniel, and it's like, hey, he's got a cool dog. Nancy's kind of running things. She's keeping them.
She was good. She was good.
Interviewer asked a question. She's like, "We have to go. Come on."
I don't trust.
Look at what Jill Biden's doing.
Her name's Jill. Oh no! First of all, it's Dr. Jill Biden.
Yeah, get it right.
You got to be right about these things.
It's not.
Offend.
And
Doctor
and to be
children how to
clear,
read good.
There's nothing wrong with a man getting old. It's not his fault. But it's enough is enough. And if the Democrats put him up as the nominee, they deserve what they get.
They don't got nobody. I want to say this. Who are the 7% of Republicans that approve of Biden? That's what I want to know. 91% of Republicans disapprove.
I bet you that's a likely voter. No.
7% approve. and then the others don't.
It's not a likely voters. That's not a likely.
These are
voters
Republican voters.
Oh, okay.
And
7% of Republicans approve.
So with Democrats, only 73% approve,
haters.
and then
It's the Trump
62,
haters.
26 disapprove.
People screwing with the pollster.
Oh yeah. White people 64 disapprove, non-white 49 disapprove, with 43 approving. Non-college is 61% disapprove. I mean, these numbers are ridiculous. The only place where it gets his place a little bit better is the urban, where it's 46 disapprove, 45 approve.
I'm just laughing. I'm remembering when Trump was like going over some poll numbers at a rally, and he's like, yeah, so and so, and then the uneducated are with me. He's like, I love the uneducated. He's like, I love the uneducated.
That's what it says non-college, college.
Trump is the only one that does that. And here's the funny thing about that stuff. It's like,
but he's laughing too.
Yeah, people loved Trump for him being who he was, just being.
But think about the talent, the natural ability that it takes to be able to go up there. And it wasn't like he would go up there for like a half hour.
Dude was on
He'd
stage.
go up there for like 90 minutes.
Hour and a half.
Yeah.
Hour and a half
2
at his
hours.
rallies. And
just kill it.
You know, I said
comedians respected him a lot.
Oh, yep. I mean, just
he's
as
a comedian himself.
He was hilarious.
As someone in politics, there were two things that I really appreciated about Trump. The first one had to do with who he was as a person, because a lot of people wanted to diminish his character and talk about his character. And here's what I came away from that. I was like, listen, as a father, whatever he's done, you can give credibility to his wives. If you want to, I'm not taking nothing away from his wives. Okay. But Trump has raised 5 children that are all accomplished. I know they were born rich. I got that. But rich kids get on coke and alcohol all day long. Rich kids lose it all the time.
Hunter. I'm sorry, excuse me.
His
allergies over here.
His kids are
Colombian.
They're poised. I mean, Ivanka Trump, like it's like you listen to and you're like, isn't she the CEO of like IBM or something?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, his kids were all very well put together. I'm like, you know what? I don't care what you say about him. That man's 5 for 5 with his children. And that says something about you as a man, as a father, as a family. You know, the second thing is going to his rallies and watching him fly in. It's already 8:30 or 10 o'clock. He gets on stage at 10 o'clock. I'm leaving the rally. I'm tired. And I'm like, I've only been to one rally.
And you only have 3 kids.
I have 3 kids. I have
1 wife.
Yeah, I have 1 wife, 3 kids, and I'm not the candidate. This guy's got 3 wives, 5 kids, and this is his 5th rally in 24 hours.
I have 1 wife and no kids.
I'm like,
and I can barely deal with day-to-day operations.
I'm asking people I go with, man, can you drive home, man? I'm like falling asleep like a baby in a car seat, going home, trying to make it home. And
I was dropped off today, so I have no idea what's going on.
And he's doing 5 of these in a 24-hour period, and he's doing it
and flying
every day.
I love it.
Yeah, and don't tell me he's got a nice bed in the back. It's still an airplane. I mean, come on.
Yeah. I'm excited. So they're saying that he might announce over the July 4th weekend, which I would love to see that happen.
Now, who's selling tickets? Who's selling tickets?
That would be such a Trump thing to do.
I would say this. It makes life so much easier if he just announces like before the primaries in August. It'll be amazing.
You know what he ought to do? He ought to replicate the original announcement at Trump Tower, coming down the escalator. Right? Remember that?
Oh my gosh!
And he had some paid crowd in there, didn't he?
Oh yeah,
he had paid crowd, right?
But that was the amazing thing.
He only had to do that once. He did one paid crowd, and after that, it was.
But along the way, you thought
when
that whole thing came out about the paid crowd at the announcement, you're like, oh, that's it. His candidacy's done. Like, nobody's going to take him seriously.
But then no one realizes that it was the employees and the staff of the building that were there on purpose.
Well, there was a lot of other random people there.
And so, like, it was just a great way to show what's going on. So, again,
that would have sunk
a lot of campaigns. But since Trump's a showman, it's like, of course it's a paid crowd. It's Trump. Like, of course he paid a bunch of people. He wanted the most beautiful people, to be, I have the most beautiful supporters. I mean, like, he would, he can get away with that.
It was the staff from Miss America. That's exactly what it was.
But the irony is that if Hillary Clinton or Biden or any of those guys were smart, they would have paid people. Remember how sad it was at her stuff? She couldn't fill a public library.
I mean, come on, of all the times to bus in people, I mean, come on.
You're already doing it on election day. Might as well be doing it during the campaign as well. Okay, let's not talk about national, because I want to talk about what's happening in local races.
All right, real quick, on the federal side, just an update in Congressional District 13, again, formerly held by Bill Young, then David Jolly, currently Charlie Crist, which has been vacated because he's running for governor. Audrey Henson, who was, again, kind of midfield, I would say, among the candidates. Anna Paulina Luna still has a lead. Amanda Mackey not far behind. Henson was kind of a latecomer and kind of couldn't get past, again, the middle of the field. She has now moved to a state house district. And she's going to be a great candidate. She puts in the work. She has a great presence. She seems to have some, whoever's helping her, if anyone's helping her, seems to be doing a good job at it. And so she'll probably do well in District 60, but she's no longer in CD13's race, which, again, we need to continue to thin out that race.
Yeah. It's too bad that Mackey and Luna couldn't work that out. But and I don't know Mackey, and I don't really know Luna that well, but it really does seem like, and I know this is kind of unfair because you don't want to do people like this and just call them, establishment. But it really does seem like it's like, okay, here's the Trump candidate, and then here's the kind of traditional Republican candidate.
Even though she's not. I mean, she's Middle Eastern. Right. Immigrant parents. I mean, the only thing, I guess,
she's a Christian.
Establishment about
she's Christian,
her
but she's
Christian,
she's
in DC.
is that she's worked in DC.
She's worked in DC. I mean? and when you go to DC, whether
you automatically get it.
You could be a lobbyist for the American Heart Association, right. And you're going to be labeled as a deep state establishment. But hey, you knew that when you went to DC, though.
She's a very nice lady. We run into her all the time on the campaign trails. I've even run into her in Mar-a-Lago. So she still goes, even though she's not getting the endorsement from Trump. But
that's smart.
It's smart. It is what it is. So the races that we're talking. So you want to finish 13?
Yeah, no, I mean, there really isn't. I don't think there are any other major updates. I mean, other than
the Sean Harrison dropping out of the Senate. The Senate.
Did he really?
Sean Harrison, that's what I saw.
Sean Harrison dropped
out of the state Senate
race
that had the Green Beret. I forget his name.
Jay Collins.
That has Jay Collins because Jay Collins got DeSantis' endorsement. You guys didn't see that?
Oh no, I didn't see that.
Jay Collins got DeSantis' endorsement, and Sean Harrison and the statement. And I don't know the backstory. Yeah, I'm not in part of the backstory
because we were just talking about him just getting in the race.
His statement said a lot. If you're in politics, number one, he said, sometimes things just they go the way they go, right? Which is basically like saying, hey, man, DeSantis stepped in, got behind a guy. What do you want me to do, right? Yeah. And then the other thing he said was, he's like, look, I don't need to be a state senator. Which I know Sean Harrison in the sense that I've met him a number of times and had a number of conversations with him. Look, he's got a very successful law practice. Yeah, he's involved in healthcare law.
And that definitely seems like his temperament.
Yeah, I mean, he doesn't.
Now, that being said, I think Sean could have pulled out a win against Jay.
Yeah, and you think so? Well, right.
Jay has more money. That
doesn't matter.
Sean would have, but he would have been a formidable candidate.
Sean has bipartisan support. He has. He would have had a lot of other local endorsements.
And in the span of 1 month, Jay Collins has went down from the high of running for a congressional district, being the person that everyone's looking at, to being now a state senator.
But
his burn rate is also ridiculous. So the money's.
But dude, being a state senator is no small haul.
I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that it's not. Yeah. What I'm saying is, you told, and again, I'm gonna. This is.
I know you don't like it.
No,
but he's getting ready to. Hey, he's getting ready to be a state senator.
This is talking points.
Just remember that.
Okay, who cares?
I wish he would have done it sooner. I wish.
And now we look at 13. We look at 14, which was his original seat, and he said he was going to fight Kathy Castor, and then he decided to move because it was becoming too difficult. And
that I didn't like.
I didn't like that. I did not like the moving around. He went from 13 to 14. Now he's going to be a state senator.
The problem, and you got to give a little grace for this. It's a a redistricting year. People didn't know where the maps were for the longest time, but if you wanted to run, you needed to get yourself out there. So you just pick a seat and you file. So you can start raising money. For those that are watching, you can't raise money as a candidate if you're not a candidate.
Yeah,
so
but
you gotta, at some point in time, you got to file. So you file, and then lines change, and then what happens is people start moving around.
No, let me tell you
out of races.
No, let me tell you what actually happened.
to him.
What I guarantee you happened is that he thought that he was going to be the golden goose that was going to be Kathy Castor, right?
And then he realized
because
the numbers.
he's a Green Beret veteran,
Right, and then he got the numbers, yeah.
And then all of a sudden, he got some people that he actually trusted
that told him the truth.
Told him the truth, and he's like, "Dude, you're not going to win this.
Not going to win,
no matter how you slice it."
Jesus
and
himself would lose this
and that's
race.
when the carousel started.
And then he moves to 14. He moves to 15, and everyone and their mother is in 15.
Yeah,
and he went from being on the top of the pack of the Republican Party on the side of 13 to that, or 14, to moving to 15, where he's nowhere near the top of the pack on that one, and then coming to find out the debacle in 14 now, that if he would have stayed, he would probably be the only Republican on the ballot for 14 at the moment because of the shenanigans that's occurred.
Yeah, but he's still
with the
not
other
gonna,
two.
He's not going to be Castor. And I talked to Jackie Toledo, who we'll hopefully have on the show at some point.
Oh, okay.
But because I asked her why not 14, and she basically said that the way that the governor drew the map basically put so much of the Republican vote into 13 that there really wasn't enough room there for a Republican to make any kind of headway in 14.
But we have all known this the entire time.
So historically, the vote has gone 60-40. And for those that are watching, the district we're talking about is basically South Tampa, downtown Tampa,
the city of Tampa.
Yeah, city of Tampa. That's the district we're talking about, and historically it's been 60% Dem, 40% Republican.
Yeah.
I mean, are you saying that didn't change at all?
I'm not saying it didn't change at all, but according to Jackie, it didn't change enough.
Right, exactly.
To make it competitive.
20 points is
now they had to pull
impossible.
to create 15. That's another problem.
Yeah. Now what's interesting is she said that they could have. They very easily could have.
But they chose they chose to save 15 or
no, they chose to
go after Chris.
Retain, to get back 13 and to bulk up 15. That was the new created district that we received, and the sacrifice was 14.
Yeah, and some people are saying it's because the governor's from Dunedin, and
no, it's a smart move. I would rather make sure that we get at least one pickup than the possibility of losing a potential seat.
People don't like it, but the founding fathers were correct in the way they established it. Political districts is a political issue to be established in law and dealt with by politicians, which are accountable to the people. It's not an issue for courts. And so no one likes it. Everybody talks against gerrymandering, but in reality, both parties gerrymander in whichever way.
Well, they both end up signing off on it.
Yeah, they sign off on it. It's a political issue. And so before anybody gets all wrapped up about gerrymandering, just know that when you're the Democratic politician like Kathy, I bet you Kathy Castor doesn't have a problem with the Republican drawn map.
She knows that map is designed for her to stay in power.
Yes, it keeps her in power.
She knows that how it works.
Yeah.
So now we've talked about the what's happening in 13. We've talked a little bit about what happened.
I should have drank these liberal tears, man.
I know.
I'm on fire.
So what has occurred now in 14 has become such an issue that we had to talk about it today, which is the issues with the two Republicans that are remaining in running in 14. 14, which is James Judd and Mr. Torres, not the Torres on the far left of the screen, but another Torres who jumped into the race as well. Both candidates technically allegedly did their paperwork incorrectly, and when they were submitted, and they were never reviewed until either a week after or until the Democrats realized the paperwork and sued for Torres to be removed from the ballot. If things go the way I think it might go, because the arguments are pretty sound, and odds are it's easier to get removed from a ballot to get put back on a ballot. So with James Judd, he says that they're claiming that he signed the wrong papers and no one told him until a week after the qualification deadline. And this is my thing. So I work with candidates. You guys have worked with candidates. You have actually been a candidate. So you've submitted paperwork before. When all of my people that I work with, I made sure they all had appointments. We had people that were subject matter experts review documentation, and we had someone in the office is a notary. So they were able to finalize that paperwork. How on earth are you just dropping off documents at the SOE's office and not having someone check the documentation? This is insane.
As a candidate, so my heart goes out to a first-time candidate because they don't know what they don't know. But I will say this though, when you're the candidate, your name is name is on the ballot. So you are responsible for everything that your campaign does or fails to do ultimately. And you need to accept responsibility for that. And that comes down to who you hire. Okay, don't just hire somebody because you like them or whatever. You hire people that are competent, that know what they're doing, but it's still your responsibility. When I was running, nobody had access to the bank account except for me until later. Because I made sure, I knew every check that was being written. I knew every expense that was being incurred because my name is on that ballot and your name is on the sign and your name is on the T-shirts. And so everyone's behavior and everyone's actions ultimately come down to being, your responsibility. So the candidate, unfortunately, is responsible. There's no one at the SOE's office whose job it is to tell you what the law is. You have to know yourself. But my heart goes out to people that do make some mistakes because it's easy to make mistakes when it comes to finance.
Correct. All the documents. So with the financial part, I can completely understand. With the additional documentation, I don't understand, again, the hubris. I don't know what happened, if they had an appointment, they didn't have an appointment, because then there's the argument to be made. You made an appointment, you reviewed all the documentation with the SOE subject matter expert person there, and you submitted the paperwork. So when I submitted paperwork for my candidates, I had the candidate there, and we went paper by paper to make sure everything was signed. So when we left the office, there was no issues going forward. Yeah. They had a copy, I had a copy, we moved forward from there.
Right.
So I don't know what happened. Is it just they just went in and dropped it off and just left it the way it is, or some other way? But in regards to Mr. Judd, it's a very difficult conversation to have because your paperwork technically is not done and it wasn't done correctly. And at the end of the day, the SOE is going to be very stickler about this. It's not a conspiracy. It's just your person that you hired did not do the right job.
Do you know who the consultants are? And if you don't want to say it,
I don't know who the consultants are.
If you don't want to say it, that's
fine.
But.
And on that note, I just want to say this, that if you are considering running for office, regardless of what office it is you're running for, hire a consultant. You don't have to hire them full time. You don't have to, spend a ton of money, but these are the kind of things that happen when you have guys that run for office that think, oh no, I don't need a consultant.
Hire a local.
I can do this. I can do this on my own.
Just hire a local, someone that's been a part of the cycle at least more than once.
Well, also to take it a step further, people get very altruistic and patriotic, right? I'm going to run for office. And that's why a lot of people want to run for Congress because it's just what they see, right? And they get all excited. I'm going to run for Congress, and they get their family and they get friends, and people get behind them and yeah, man, you'd be great at that. You've always talked about politics. You should. We're tired of you talking about what you saw on Fox News. People get this idea in their head they're going to run. You got to understand there's a process.
Yes.
Politics, whether you like it or not, it's a business. There's more. The politician is like the very tip of the iceberg. There's this entire apparatus underneath
ecosystem
there of laws and regulations, and then there's just kind of the how do you do this type of thing. You got to have help.
And I'm not saying again, because again, Joe, we've talked about this from your experience. It's not to say that you're going to need a consultant every time you run. If you happen to be fortunate to run more than once, but at least the first time around, you need somebody that's going to show you the way. You need someone that knows the ropes, someone that knows the deadline, someone that knows the paperwork. Again, this is not high school, where you're running, for class president or something like that. It's not just throwing up yard signs and good luck.
Well, and there's a lot of things that you don't need to do as a candidate for much of your race, right? Because people aren't paying attention. But there's some things that you have to be doing. And so ultimately, hey, look, if you're thinking about running for office and you want to be the candidate, first of all, you don't have to be a candidate or get elected to make a difference in politics. There's tons of things that people need help with. But if you find yourself wanting to be a candidate, just understand that if you're not asking for someone's vote or raising money, then you should be questioning what it is that you're doing. Because that's what the candidate is supposed to be doing. pretty much 24/7. And oh, by the way, I don't care what you're doing in your personal life or your professional life, you need to put that on the back burner. And if you're not serious about that, if running for office doesn't become just about your full-time job with everybody that's close to you getting involved in it, then I'm questioning your commitment.
Correct.
Because that's the commitment that you have to have.
And that people, I mean, again, donors and supporters are going to question your commitment.
Yes.
If that's not the case.
How am I going to write you a check for $1,000 if I don't see you out there busting your butt? I want to see you working.
Right. Yeah. No, look, and I've seen people that go out there, they put their name on the ballot, and then all of a sudden they're going on vacation, you know, and they're going and, you know, and then doing all kinds of...
this. People watch. People notice what's going on. Why isn't this person ending? Right. So the second part of what's happening in the kerfuffle of CD14 is Jerry Torres, who switched from CD15 to CD14 to run as a Republican, also has issues with his paperwork. And this came, a lawsuit has been filed by the Democratic Party of Florida stating that there is some kerfuffle in regards to the
little snafu.
To the paperwork, timing, and if someone was actually present when they signed the papers with the notary. Also, the notary that's on the documentation for Mr. Torres's campaign documents is not a notary from Florida. They're a notary from Mississippi. So I'm like, in my mind, I'm like, there's someone in the office that can do that right then and
running for office is not the time. Well, and running for office is not the time to get gray with the rules.
That's hilarious.
You know what I mean?
Dude went and got a notary from Mississippi.
No, they don't even think the notary was in this. First of all, Torres wasn't in the country. They're alleging
that he wasn't in the country, so he couldn't have signed it.
The date on the notary is technically the same time that he was not in the country. So there's no way that could have possibly happened.
Mind you, no,
I could be wrong. I could be wrong. This is all allegations. I have not seen the document.
This could have happened because nowadays there are tools for notary to do these signatures digitally.
No, Florida, it has to be a wet signature.
All right. Well,
they have to see you signing the document.
They have to see you signing.
But here's the thing, dude. You could go to Amscot. You could go to Amscot and
Well, they don't have Amscot when you're vacationing in Costa Rica.
I guess
no, it's not. I think it was like Sierra Leone. He was in Africa.
Oh my God.
I think he was in Africa
and was on the phone like, what? Oh, was that this Friday? Yeah. Can you just do that for me and we'll just hand jam it?
I'm telling you right now, if it is what it is, I just read that there is another Republican in the race,
and it's federal. This is federal.
You don't play around with federal. You go to jail with federal situations.
Exactly. Like
better to
don't play with that money.
Not that he was going to win.
Federal PACs.
Not that he's going to win, but it's better to figure this out now, because what you don't want is when the person becomes the nominee. Mm-hmm. and then actually they're the nominee and they get booted off.
This becomes a problem.
Or they get elected. And then there's that whole thing, and then they don't get seated in Congress because of that. I mean, it's just...
So right now, Sam, I'm going to butcher the name, Nashia, is the GOP primary, is the other Republican in the GOP for CD14. If disqualified on the ballot, he automatically becomes the Republican nominee for CD14.
How great is that? How great is that?
This is phenomenal.
I busted my tail and the campaign probably spent $250,000 so I could become a Republican nominee. Could you imagine just accidentally becoming a nominee?
Even better, if Jay Collins would have stayed in that race,
he would have been the nominee by default. But he wasn't going to win. So
no Republican is going to win that race. So it doesn't matter.
Right. I get tired of having that conversation with locals. They get pissed off when you say
so mad. They get so upset.
We can fight. We can win this. I'm like, we don't want to.
I'm trying. I know. I'm sorry.
We have an associate director over here who's giving us hand signals.
How many teeth have you lost already?
Careful, people are going to think we have crackheads working for us behind the scenes.
Well, in the part of town we are in right now. She's not a hockey player? Why can't I do that?
Oh my God.
How is that rude?
Are you harassing a 6-year-old?
I'm not doing anything.
Your voice getting higher there, Ross?
Of course.
I also just want to point out, since we're talking about kid stuff, I just want to point out the loser that's over Johnny's left shoulder there.
Oh,
the loser, Buzz Lightyear.
Oh,
I just want to point out that loser.
I cannot believe Disney did what
they went
did.
woke. You got to get him off the shelf, man.
First of all,
you got to take him down off the shelf.
No, because this is the Toy Story Buzz Lightyear.
He's like anti-gun.
It's not the Lightyear.
And that's the problem. Why did they get rid of the voice? I'm Tim Allen.
Because it's a different character.
It's not appropriate.
It's a different character.
Well, that character should not be.
Bombed.
If you'd see the movie, you'd know why.
I'm not going to watch that movie. If anything, we're going to watch Jurassic Park for the 14th time. Right. I've yet to see the beach scene in Maverick. I'm waiting for that one from the new Top Gun.
You haven't seen the movie
it's
yet?
Not all
I haven't seen the new one
Okay,
yet.
we're not going to talk about it then. But
why not? Have you seen it?
I've seen it.
I haven't seen it yet.
It was great.
I'm assuming there's...
It was great.
Scientologists everywhere.
I'm not going to say anything about the movie.
Billions of dollars that they're raising.
Yeah, I'm not going to say anything about the movie, but it was great for two reasons, and here's why. And I haven't went to a movie in a long time, and I went to that one, and it was great for two reasons. One, because it was pro-America, and two, because there was nothing woke about it. It was just a freaking movie.
You're right.
A freaking pro-America, go kick some ass movie.
And honestly, the only unfortunate thing about it is that it fills the coffers of Tom Cruise and Scientologists.
That's the unfortunate part, right?
You know,
I wonder what are they taking a percent? What
of course,
he have to pay?
Something happening.
Oh, he gives them a ton. He gives them
I mean, the movie's already made $1 billion, so Scientology got at least a couple mil.
Oh, easily. I mean, if those aren't his annual dues, I mean,
is he still bought into that? Hasn't he?
He's second in line.
He's second in line.
Oh, he's second in line to like what? What, the president of...
Well, he's second in line to get on the spaceship as soon as it happens. Isn't that how it works?
Yeah, I mean, they basically treat him like the head of the organization.
He gets his own planet. Like, he literally gets his own planet. Ooh,
that was a good one. All right.
Well, I didn't know that. I was just going to say, with all the money that he's paid, because you have to basically buy your way through the levels. I was going to say, hasn't he achieved like the highest level just by the money he spent?
They literally treat him
the highest level of enlightenment,
just as well, if not better, than the head of the organization.
I always felt that Scientology was like watching Dragon Ball Z. Like every episode, there was a new level that you had to get to go even higher and higher. So I don't know.
What if you went in for the little sensing session and you stuck your hand there and you were like, like you acted like you got a ledge guy? Like,
oh my gosh.
Do people not troll them?
So I do. So Peter and I, when we were in high school, did that because they used to have a site in Ybor City, and we purposely were like, we'd be holding the stuff, and they're like, "Are you getting stressed?" No, I'm not stressed. Well, are you stressed yourself? No. And to find that, I'm like, your questions are stressing me out.
Right. Like, remember how people had like the tuning for the thing that you hold that like
we've gone too far.
Remember the thing that like it like the rod it moves and you're trying to find
oil.
You're trying to find water or something, right? Like, I mean, it's just like, come on, guys.
Did they give that to you when you were in elementary school?
All right. On that note, everybody, thank you for watching The Yard Sign, the most important relevant podcast in politics. We appreciate you for watching. Anibal, David Cabrera, Joe Wicker, and yours truly, Johnny Torres. Thank you so much for watching. Again, big shout out to our partner in the broadcast, Community Patriots at community-patriots.com, an incredible organization out there doing incredible work, not only at the community level and uplifting communities in need, but also getting involved in the political process and making sure that we are supporting constitutionally founded candidates throughout the community. So check them out. Start your own chapter. Join a chapter, community-patriots.com. And don't forget, if you missed any part of the show, you can watch it on Facebook, YouTube, or subscribe to the audio version of our podcast at the Tech Overlords at Google, Apple, Spotify, Audible, Amazon, iHeartRadio, Odyssey, and Samsung podcast platforms. On that note, thank you so much for watching. We'll catch you next week, Monday, 7-ish. Good night, everybody.